So we'll be going back and forth between the share and presenting full frontal, if that makes sense. I want to say welcome. We are grateful that you guys are in the room. I see a few people. So I'm a teacher, so I like to call names. So I see Natalie, Gary, Nefertiri, D, Houskin, and Jabari. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. As you know, my name is Ty, or you may not know, my name is Taiye Olapado, and this is my twin sister,
Lola Oladapo.
and we are the proud owners. We are, first of all, we're your favorite Airbnb hosts and the proud owners of the TL Hospitality Group. And we are an innovative Airbnb travel hospitality brand that's on mission to change the world through the art of hosting well. A little bit more about the TL Hospitality Group is that we are also the parent. We have a kid, y'all. We have a kid. We are the proud parents of the online cultural experiences brand called Urbanity Lush, which is a curated community of for the cultural connoisseur, the travelers, as well as lovers of all things hospitality. Now, Lola's going to kind of break down the setup for the evening. And with that said, Lola, take it away.
Again, welcome. Thank you all for joining us for this evening's conversation, Blacks in Hospitality, the need for equitable recovery. Again, my name is Miss Lola Oladapo. So in honor of Black History Month, we thought we'd take a trip down memory lane and highlight various roles that and positions that Blacks have had in the hospitality industry. We wanted to particularly shine a light on this concept of hospitality as a tool for social good. So as Airbnb hosts, we've had the opportunity to really experience the power of hospitality to really expand people's understandings of differences in gender, kindness and empathy. And we all know we need more of that right now. Um, and so we basically contend that Black hospitality has been the underpinnings of some of our nation's most transformational movements, like movements for voting and civil rights. So, in light of this reality, each panelist will highlight either a historical figure or a concept closely related to hospitality that helped to really push America to live up to its ideals, right? From there, we're going to transition into a conversation about COVID-19 and this real impact it has had on the hospitality industry in general, and then specifically Black-owned businesses within the hospitality industry, and what are some targeted efforts that are being made to really help businesses like ours get back on our feet. And then we'll just, end with some
Q&A.
informational. Well, if we have time, we'll have Q&A. But yeah, so we'll see about that. All right,
Awesome.
so we're gonna go ahead and dive in and introduce our panelists. Um, so we had two that were supposed to be joining us, but unfortunately, Miss Leah Rogers doesn't seem like she's going to be able to join us. But we do have Dr. Stephanie Brown. So welcome and thank you for joining us for this conversation. Dr. Brown is a director of student success at Esperanza College at Eastern University, and she's the founder of I Am Educational series, whose mission is to provide educational resources that uncover hidden figures and highlight the contributions men and women of color have made in America. So again, we're grateful that you have decided to join us for this conversation. We know it's going to be a fascinating one. Um, okay, so let's jump in. So I think before we can actually start the conversation, we kind of need to set the definition for what hospitality is, because so many
Okay.
people have different definitions. So according to the Hospitality Net, hospitality basically is a broad field that consists of many different industries. And they have four main sectors: the food and beverages industry, so that's restaurants, bars, cafes, travel. Oh, Leah, she's here. Awesome. Well, let's
Welcome.
introduce our second panelist, Miss Leah Rogers. We're so glad you decided to join us. So Ty, you're going to go ahead and introduce Miss
Sure.
Leah.
Hi, Leah. Welcome. We're excited that you were able to make it.
Yay!
Um, so, Miss Leah Rogers is the owner of the Reinvention Intentions LLC, Reinventions LLC offers a wide range of services. They focus on providing client homes with beautiful installations, making sure that the property is showroom perfect and ready for the market. The company performs a comprehensive on-site property consultations to determine the level of staging needed and required. Each staging is unique. As we know, every home is unique and is tailored to and made to fit every client and every budget. So welcome, Leah Rogers. We're excited that you're here.
Thank you again, Leah, for joining us.
Thank you.
We were just getting ready to define hospitality for our viewers. There's various definitions, and we just kind of wanted to make sure that we gave the context for our conversation. So again, hospitality is a broad category that consists of many different industries. The four main sectors are food and beverages, that's restaurants, bars, and cafes. Then there's travel and tourism, that's convention centers and resorts, shuttles, cabs, and even Uber drivers. Then there's lodging, so that's hotels, extended stays, and yes, even Airbnbs like ours. And finally, there's recreation, the cruise lines, amusement parks, and concerts and sporting. So as you can see, it's a very expansive industry, and it employs millions of people all over the country. So as we look throughout history, some of the roles that Blacks have held in the hospitality industry consist of bellmen, front desk operators, waitresses, waiters, cab drivers, and even domestic workers. A really interesting fact, Merlin Power, an economist from Sarah Lawrence College, she found that in 1960, 60% of all employed Black women were service workers, including domestic workers, waitresses, and building cleaners, as well as kitchen workers. So many people think that these roles are very mundane, insignificant, ordinary, but we don't believe that. We believe that these are revolutionary roles. I'm going to turn it over to Leah really quickly to share with the audience how Black hospitality actually set the standard for excellence and what it has meant for the industry as a whole. So Leah, can you share with us a little bit about your grandmother and how she really pushed the industry forward in her excellence in service?
Okay, make
Here we
sure.
go. I'm getting it. I'm getting it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting it.
I can pop up your slide when you say go.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
There we go. That's my granny. So a lot of things. This is Catherine Lavoy Jackson. She was a domestic since she was in 8th grade. So between the ages, I guess, 13 and 14, and she had a responsibility to run a household at that young age, and those responsibilities include washing, cleaning, cooking. She took care of children, but the thing that she did was she made the home comfortable. She started as a domestic, getting chores, and the responsibility was told to her what to do. And towards the end of her employment, she became very valued because she ran the household. And if things didn't come together, then the household didn't run well. So she did that from the age of 13 and 14. Forward fast, she still carried those talents, I would call it. And she started her house was known as the house to go for, like a safe haven for family and friends of family. So, she was raised in Des Moines. She, back then, a lot of people would travel, they called jumping train cars to get back and forth. And so her family, my grandfather and his, brothers and sisters, are about 6 or 8 of them, came to her house when they were traveling from Higginsville, Missouri, and Buxton, Iowa, and Des Moines, Iowa, which were a commonplace for a lot of African Americans at that time. So she transferred her domestic skills into making the home comfortable for her guests, her private guests, because it was family and friends. And again, that, those are the things that when I joined, you were talking about, those are the things that were kind of considered mundane then, but these are the things that happen behind the scenes, and they just skills like this and these talents and offering these things. This is what happens behind every successful five-star hotel, every successful Airbnb, every successful hospitality. These are the things that people like my grandmother, our grandmothers, our greats, and our great-greats, they are the pioneers of these things.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they really are the foundation to many of our five-star hotels. Like, they built these hotels through this excellence in service and preparing spaces that were comfortable and inviting, and
Exactly.
down to like folding sheets and ironing and so forth and so on. So they really have built multi-million-dollar businesses, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're the things that they work so well. The wheel is greased so well with perfection and a high level of standards that we just come to know it as these are the things that should happen.
Yeah.
And when they don't happen, we recognize it as poor service, and we are not satisfied.
Wow, very much so.
That's good.
Thank you so much for sharing with us about your grandmother and her, just being one of the trailblazers in setting standards, excellent standards in what hospitality is. Not only did Blacks set standards for excellence in the hospitality industry, but they served as unlikely allies to the 1960s movement for civil rights for Blacks, right?
Yep.
You might ask, how is that? Well, as we know, the 60s was rife with social upheaval. There were mass nonviolent protests and civil disobedience, all working to end discrimination for Blacks in schools, public accommodations, and the workforce. With 60% of Black women working in domestic roles during that time, they were engaging whites as their cooks, their maids, nannies, and housekeepers. And in doing so, they were softening hearts, right? And revealing their humanity to their white employers, many of whom, especially the wives, would go on to partner and finance the civil rights movement. So one example, one really great example is actually depicted in the movie, the 1990 movie, A Long Walk Home, with Whoopi Goldberg, who was the main character. So she's playing the role of a domestic, and she services the family, the Thompsons family. And the movie is set in the 1960s during the Montgomery bus boycott. And she's not taking the bus because everyone in Montgomery have decided to not take the bus, right? So her family, Mrs. Thompson, realizes that she's not taking the bus. And so she decides to pick her up and bring her back and forth. And this was a huge social no-no. But Mrs. Thompson refused to allow the conditions around her force her to acquiesce to I'm rambling right now. Basically,
the social norms.
Yeah, the social norms at the time, right? So there's a quote that Mr. Thompson says in the movie that was very profound. He says, "I think Odessa has been a wonderful maid for us, but that's all she is, a maid. You driving her to work is telling her that she is just like us, and she is not and can never be." So Mrs. Thompson's, her response to her husband's statement, shows us that she did not believe that she didn't believe this statement. She believed that Odessa had just as much worth and value as she did. That she should have the same rights and privileges as she had, right? So she decides to not only continue to take Odessa back and forth to her job, but she also volunteers to become a part of the carpooling program that they had set up during that time. And so she knew that Miss Odessa was not more than a maid, right? She was actually a revolutionary. So there's so many countless examples of hospitality being used as a method to push social change. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stephanie Brown to share with us another example that many of us may not know about.
Yes. So I am excited, and I just want to welcome everybody and to share with you, like, how was hospitality actually sustained through all those years? How did African Americans at that time stay in those jobs or even excel? And one way is through resources that were created by Black people for Black people, right? Because the question is, how in the world did these jobs in hospitality and bridging the gaps and making changes and changing hearts, and how was that sustained? And one way is through the Green Book. And if you know anything about history, you know the Green Book was a rundown of all like barbershops, of all services, hospitals, not maybe hospitals, but hotels. All of these resources were combined into one book for Black people so that they could be safe. Because we know since the segregation was just riddled in the South, that you were lynched, you were killed, you were kidnapped, you were raped, you were harmed, all of these things. So the African Americans at that time, or the author of this book, which is Victor Hugo Green, he created a rundown of resources to keep people safe. And not only that, because that is enough, right? You know, just to keep your community safe, to keep your brothers and sisters safe when they travel. That's enough. But what it actually did was it created or sustained the Black dollar. And what I mean by that is that providing a network of resources to the community, for the community, and at the time was just for the Black people, it allowed those businesses to thrive because everybody knew about this was a safe place. This was a safe agency. You won't be killed at this hotel. You're not going to be lynched around this barbershop. So it was a way to sustain and create the Black dollar. And it was a way to network and keep the community safe. Because and really build a network of community, meaning to share things, to even in their expertise. Because if you knew that you can only serve like 50 or 60 people, you're going to make sure that your skills are top notch so that you can serve that 50 people over and over again and just make sure that your business continues to thrive. And that was how the Green Book was just one resource that really sustained hospitality, sustained not only their jobs and safety, but it actually sustained the Black dollar. Because you have to ask yourself, Madam C.J. Walker was one of the first woman billionaire, Black billionaire in the country. How did she do that? Because there was a network of people who knew about the services that she provided. The Green Book was essentially that very same thing. And there's power in that. Once somebody knows that this is a good product and that this is going to help me, you have that customer for life. But for Black people, because of segregation, they weren't able to do that, but they accomplished it by a resource like the Green Book. But that's not even it. There was also created, it says it's called like the voting rights, the pamphlet, and it was created to help Black men vote and be in an environment that, again, they wouldn't be harmed, they wouldn't be lynched, that they could fulfill their civic obligation and their civic community. You know what I mean? Like, I just love learning about that because Black people were consistently taking care of each other, looking back for those behind them, and still fulfilling their civic duties and civic responsibilities in this country. And then they were making ways for everyone to be able to do that. So I love talking about that because it's amazing. you know, and I think it's a pattern of what businesses in hospitality and all businesses should strive for, you know, connecting, and the internet, social media, it's a great way to do that. But as we all know, it's still not enough. Right? You know, Black businesses are still, some of them are still struggling, even now in the midst of the pandemic, you know, and the question is like, how do we build that Black dollar again? How do we build sustainability in our community? You know?
Yes, wow, that's awesome. I love your
It's
enthusiasm
amazing.
talking about that.
Yeah, and it's something that we can easily model now, you know, because it's still there. You know, you can even download the green book, you can buy it off Amazon for a souvenir or something, but it's a testimony of one person, one man saying, look, my people are going to be killed. I can't let that happen. And I'm concerned about the businesses, you know, because if we don't participate, we don't buy those businesses would have failed in segregation. You know, the Black clients were the only people who could buy the products, you know. So if there wasn't a way to find the products, to get to the products, those Black businesses in the time of segregation would had failed.
Wow.
So we're gonna at later on in our conversation, we're gonna be talking about what are some things that we could be doing collectively to help Black-owned businesses, particularly in the hospitality industry, really get back on their feet. And I definitely believe that this is a concept because, like you said, the infrastructure is already there. You know, it's not about us having to reinvent the wheel.
Yes.
We can actually go back, look back to history and see what our ancestors did and recreate that. So that's a great idea to take with us.
Awesome.
Sure.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Dr. Brown talked about in highlighting and I'll just switch the slide here, highlighting something called the tourist house. So basically, you know, chronicle within the Green Book, you have this invaluable tool of the Green Book, and it's showing you kind of like the emergence of the Black entrepreneur, and in particular, the operator of the tourist house, okay, or the tourist houses. These were, you know, homes, residential homes. The first Airbnbs, if you will, were Black families, and mainly the women would set aside spare rooms or transform the entire home into a place where that was consistently safe and was a space where people could, like we've all been saying, experience excellent accommodations. And what I loved about the history of the tourist houses is that it started in the 40s, but people could frequent these homes well throughout the 60s. The tourist house was like an ingenious operation where the mothers and the wives were the consummate hosts or hostesses, if you will. And they were able to generate so much revenue from people frequenting their homes that the family was able to expand to create our jazz spots and to create family restaurants. So like you guys have already said, you know, from this one residential home or a few residential homes in the community, you see this expansion of business and entrepreneurship within that area. I also love that as a result of that revenue, these women and families got to partake in not only housing, you know, civil rights leaders and jazz artists and your Black breadwinners who wanted to kind of find a place that was safe so that once they return home from travel, they can say, hey, I made it safely back. That revenue was taken and it funded some of the civil rights movement, but also they were able to house some of those leaders who were on the ground, the boots on the ground, doing the heavy lifting of civil rights and trying to find equity for our community. So yeah, the tourist house, similar to, you know, what we're running here as an Airbnb, is a part of Black history and Black excellence, hospitality excellence. So
yes, absolutely.
Well, as you can see, Blacks have been all throughout the hospitality industry. They have held many roles, and many of them have serviced the community. through their entrepreneurship. They have helped the community through very difficult times. And I believe, like I mentioned earlier, this is the time for Blacks to come together and really help each other through the pandemic, right? So we're going to transition really quickly into our next part of our conversation. And we're going to talk about COVID-19 and how it has really impacted businesses like ours and just the entire hospitality industry. As I had mentioned, the hospitality has many different sectors, and that they employ millions of staff, right? So according to the World Tourism Organization, about 70% of the travel plummeted. Why that is important is because hospitality feeds off of travel, right? Mm-hmm. So just like we are kind of a conduit for the students who are at University of Penn and Drexel, many of them were our clients, right? And they would travel from abroad, they would do these programs here, and they would stay in our home. But because of the travel restrictions, a lot of businesses have had to, they basically have lost their clientele. We were one of them, and I'm gonna have Taiye share exactly what has happened shortly, but I just wanna give you some really sobering statistics on the landscape here in Philadelphia. So here in Philadelphia, according to Visit Philadelphia, our city attracted 46 million people from across the United States in every corner of the globe, resulting in 12.2 billion or 33 million each day for our city. This was in 2019. So we had a banner year. We were a destination city, right? Since COVID-19 started, our region has lost 4 billion since March of 2020. Visitors and their money support jobs for over 100,000 people, including African Americans, who account for about 70% of the frontline roles in hotels across Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Hotels and other accommodation businesses like Airbnbs, all those businesses that support us have also been impacted. And Mia, I'm gonna actually speak to that shortly. So as Airbnb hosts, we can attest to our own decline in revenue, right? Taiye, you want to share our story?
Well, we started 7 years ago as a standalone Airbnb, and we were doing fabulously. And then, in March 2020, the pandemic hit, and our revenue essentially went to zero. And so, because we had to close our doors, we couldn't host live in our own home. But the interesting thing about the pandemic and kind of pulling on that resourcefulness that is, Black history and Black girl magic, we
made a way.
We see this as an opportunity. We saw it as an opportunity to, pivot and re-engineer our in-home experiences to something that we could then put online, so that we have curated experiences. And that's how we have come up with our Urbanity Lush arm. So yeah, definitely have been impacted like many businesses in Philadelphia, but pulling on that ingenuity within our community and within our heritage, we feel like we have something that, we can rebound with.
Yes. And they are projecting that in the summer of 2021, that the travel industry will come back. There has been some glimmers of hope, so to speak. Actually, within the Airbnb industry, some countries have rebounded already to pre-COVID numbers, and America isn't there yet, but hopefully we'll be there soon. So we're anticipating being able to reopen, hopefully in the summer, when the majority of people start to travel again, because the vaccine will have, been rolled out by then. That's the hope anyway. So Leah, as a business that services businesses like ours, mm-hmm. How has COVID-19 impacted your revenues and your clientele?
So there are a couple things that have happened. In some cases, the Airbnb business has skyrocketed. And then in other areas, it has really taken a hit. It's taken a hit. For the businesses that model themselves like as a boutique hotel, through the roof. The standalones are taking more of a hit. And I think that there's an opportunity, exactly what you guys are doing, Lola, and is kind of revamping, taking a look back and seeing where the opportunities are, because COVID is not new. It's a new virus, but we have survived the Black Plague. We have survived the Spanish flu. And the Black Plague wiped out 50% of Europe, right?
Yeah.
So, but what that did was it created other opportunities. So what happened is that the workers, the domestics, the peasants, as they were called then, there was no one to do their work because they were dying off. So what that did was it taught the employers to value that, okay, when they're not doing it, who's doing it? So they were able to negotiate higher salaries as an outcome. And so we have an opportunity now as Airbnb host to take a look at what your guests demands, what the economy is looking for, what are new social norms. And when you address those things, because now it's more of a challenge, you have to show your guests that you have taken the time to prepare an accommodation that makes them safe and keeps them safe. Right. And so how do you do that? I think, are we frozen?
No.
Oh, okay. I didn't see anyone. So how do you do that through a photo?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the new challenge. And so what we do on the accommodations that do very well, we show that really well. So for example, we go back to ironing the sheets, right? Because it's all visual. We use white linen. Why? Because white linen shows that it's clean and it's sterile and it shows everything. So if it's white when I get there and it's pressed when I get there, you've taken the time to do that. It's a psychology. It's a mindset, right? I'm going to make sure in my photos, I have hand sanitizer and face masks, because when I come to your property, you're making it safe for me to go out and enjoy myself. So in short, you are changing those things. And now that it's a downtime, it's the perfect time to level up where you can the accommodation, because no matter whom you are, your guest is looking for excellence. And luckily for our community and our culture, we have developed the standard of excellence.
I agree. I concur 100%. So what about resources? So, there's been a lot of governmental resources from the PPP program, state funded programs. I know for us, we've had some barriers accessing a lot of the funding. And actually there was a study done by Michigan University in May of 2020, and they found that less than 1% of Black owned businesses were receiving benefits from the PPP program. So that's the Paycheck Protection Program. And so they were wondering, like, what were some of the barriers that people were experiencing. And I know for us, when we tried to access it, they were saying, because you have you're receiving pandemic insurance, you're not qualified for this. Or some businesses were disqualified because they were taking into account their personal credit scores as opposed to their business credit scores. And then the application is just a very arduous process. It's
extremely.
I think I know one minority.
You have a legal team, forget about it.
Yeah, it's very daunting, but we do know of one minority business, a young lady who runs an interior design firm, Magdalene Mayo. She was able to access the funding. But there's just been a lot of a lot of barriers. I know, and so for us, we really turned to more private funding. So we've been doing a lot of signing up for a lot of pitch and present presentations, which has been very helpful. We were able to access some state funding, but I definitely think that there needs to be more of a targeted effort or more targeted.
There are you certified? Are you a certified business owner? Meaning, are you certified as a Black-owned business? Are you certified as a woman-owned business? Are you certified as a small business?
No.
Because inside all of those certifications are access to help, especially through the Small Business Administration.
Okay.
And there are special areas that will help small minority-owned businesses. And you have access to government, you have access to, corporations, which means you have access to financial institutions. So I mean, it's a process to get yourself certified.
Yeah, it is, because we looked into it.
But the other side of it just opens up for you.
Okay.
Yeah, for finance and for business, even as for business access, access to opportunities.
Make sure you guys take that note, okay? Business, those entrepreneurs out there. So Stephanie, you talked earlier a little bit about how Blacks can model some of the I guess the layout from the Green Book and implement it in our community today to help support Black businesses. Do you have any suggestions on how we can get that started, or
Yes, in a variety of ways. Like we're doing it now, Lola, like you're using your IG, your Facebook to the max, and you're letting the world know that you're out there, that you're here, especially, pre-pandemic. I remember seeing all of these advertisements about what you guys are doing, like you are establishing yourself. Mm-hmm. But I think what we need to do is gather together in various ways, just like Leo was saying about access, but if there's key pieces that someone else knows and someone else knows and someone else knows, but separated, we don't know those critical parts. Mm-hmm. It's just how do we come together to share about what are the steps that we need to take to be sustaining. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's essentially what Hugo did, and I think I saw somebody in the chat that the mail carriers, he had scouts, people to say, okay, this is a good place, this is a good place. And that's what we need. But yet we don't know what everybody else is doing. And that is the Bible says we perish for lack of knowledge. And it applies here too, because someone says to me, Stephanie, I didn't even know that you were doing I Am, and I've only been doing it for 6 months. But besides the point, if I don't share it or connect with certain people on a consistent basis, then people are not going to know, and that's where I think we fail. So networking, I think, is critical, even with the pandemic, and I think it's even critical now because we're all online and we're all searching. Yeah. So it's a matter of putting our stuff in places where it can be seen, so you can get a little bit from this person, a little bit from this person, advice from this person, because the goal is to come together and unify. The Bible even talks about that too, unifying, and you see that. And what I love about how the Green Book and the voters registration, they told us that it's doable. Yeah. Underneath the worst conditions, conditions that none of us have ever experienced, like our grandparents, our great grandparents, and going back through history, we ourselves have never experienced that. They did, and they did it. Yeah. They won. They had sustainability. Yeah. And nothing could break that unless they broke it themselves or something else. But they did it. So
very resourcefully. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it was I would say it was managed and updated properly, because Hugo knew that things were changing. So it lasted 30 years too. And there was all these additions because
international at one point. Huh? Didn't it go international at one point?
Yeah, I believe he did. But I know in the US, it lasted about 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was sustainable and it was useful. And I mean, it's just unbelievable how they made that happen and it wasn't destroyed
Yeah.
in the midst of extreme pressure and stress and segregation and fighting for your rights. My goodness, what a lesson.
You know, Dr. Brown, on one of the things that Green said, the author of the Green Book, he said that at some point this book should go out of print because we will have, you know, we will be able to travel freely and segregation will not be an issue. So there was a larger mission and vision even behind that book, but he left behind the blueprint.
Yes.
So I love that.
And you know what, ladies, and everybody watching, it almost teaches you that, and this might be a negative to say, but it teaches you that sometimes we're not able to access the things we need from the government in a way. You know, like we're not able to get some of the things that other people get. You have these constraints all over the place. He took it upon himself and did it. And that's what I love most. You know what I mean? He didn't wait until, okay, what's the government going to do? I'm not going to wait until the segregation laws are abolished. I'm doing this now because so in a way, like we're relying on resources because we have to, because it is a must, because we're in this pandemic and in financial constraints. But I think some of the responsibility is on us to make the move and to do it now, because that's exactly what he did. Actually, that's what they did.
He did. And
that's
what we're doing here tonight.
Okay.
It's great.
Speaking of, I want you guys to share briefly about your own businesses. So I'll start with Leah and then we'll come back to you, Stephanie. You can share about your business following Leah.
Sure, thank you. So Leah Rogers, I'm the owner and founder of Reinvention Intentions Home Staging. We like to say we prepare homes for sale in the shortest amount of time and for maximum profit in the real estate marketplace. And we also prepare Airbnbs so that your guests will want to pay to stay there. So we've been in the Airbnb space for since 2017. Okay. And we've been in the staging space since 2012. And we service Philadelphia, New Jersey, and we haven't done Delaware, but we say have boxes will travel. So we can also do Delaware as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome work.
Thank you.
And Dr. Brown.
Yes. So I founded the I Am Educational series based on experience in education. I noticed a major lack of representation all through K to 12 education. And so for that cause, I don't want any child to grow up like I did in education. I want them to see their faces. I want them to see images. So what I've done is created a Facebook page and a resource hub and a website that gives instructors, where do I go? Who should I teach? How do I teach it? I've created lesson plans based on the heroes in Black history and also women's history, because sometimes the schools do a really good job with MLK, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman. They do an excellent job with those three. Yeah. But there's like a million three. Three leaders and activists and abolitionists that have done so many great things and contributed to this country. And again, it's up to us to tell their stories, because if we rely on the educational systems, maybe it'll never be done. But my philosophy, it's as long as you're breathing, it's up to us. It's up to me to make the difference. So at my hub, my educational series, I Am Educational series, you're going to find lesson plans. You're going to find strategies. And I'm also putting books, because I'm interviewing authors of children's literature, because I don't know if you guys know that only about 11% of children's books have representation of Black people, Black children, or African descent. 11%. For Hispanics and Latinos, it's about 7%.
Wow.
And that has got to change. So in my hub, the newest thing that I'm doing, I'm going to list some books for resources for teachers, because some don't know, where do I go? Who's popular? So I have to provide the resources along with the lesson plans on these heroes who contributed to American society. So that's what I do on the side. I am an educational series.
You both are doing amazing work.
Thank you.
So I think we have a couple of more minutes, and I think we should segue into some questions, and then we'll end with some resources for you all. Does anyone have any questions for either us or the panelists? We'll wait a couple of minutes to see if anyone pops in a question.
I do see a question in the chat from a little bit earlier.
I have a question for Miss Rogers about the Airbnb segment of your business. That's so interesting. It seems like a really natural extension to a staging business, really smart. Have you seen an increase in that portion of your business in the region? And you know, I'm just curious about the impact of platforms on different business models.
Yes, we have seen an increase, and Airbnbs and real estate in general follow the market. There's an increase in travel. So, you know, people are always going to need a place to stay when they travel. And Airbnb right now is outpacing hotels because of the pandemic. There are less opportunities to socially gather, which means there are less opportunities to acquire COVID. So there are a lot now, even what they're calling COVID stays. So people are preparing spaces so that people can go and quarantine, or people have a family and their home is quarantined and they need a place to go. But the travel industry in general now it's picking up, and because of that, people need a place to stay. So the Airbnb market is also picking up.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really excited to read that, because I have obviously been following the trends in the Airbnb, and I was really surprised that they have essentially rebounded to their levels pre-COVID. I don't know if it's the same here in the United States, but definitely global. Like there's like over, I want to say 7 million Airbnbs all over the world, and I think they're like in every country. But yeah, they definitely have recovered, and I hear that a lot of people are gravitating towards the more isolated Airbnbs, the more secluded Airbnbs, like you said, Leah. You know, where they're less likely to encounter other people, and they can kind of get away and retreat. So yeah, when you think of Airbnb, you have to think of it as like two models, because there's the home hosting arm, which is who we are, and then you have the Armitage arm, which is like the standalone or boutique Airbnbs. And what makes us unique is that we provide a very unique hospitality experience, because we get really up and close with our guests. We provide dinners for them. We sit down with them. We have these really stimulating conversations. And we believe it's through these conversations that they learn about us as Black women, because a lot of times this may be the first time that they really engaged a Black woman outside of their country or outside of their state. They get to learn about our experience, right? And
absolutely,
we're Christian and we get to share our philosophy, and they may be atheist or agnostic, and so we have like these really awesome conversations. Like, robust, and what I've learned is that strangers will tell you a lot more than people that you've known for 20 years.
Absolutely. And shaking her head, yeah.
So we've seen how they have come away changed and broadened, and we have as well, and we really want to continue to replicate that through our virtual arm of Urbanity Lush. And that's why we say we're on mission to change the world through the art of hosting well, because we really believe that hospitality can change.
We believe that we know.
Yeah,
It's been historically proven.
You guys are making the world go round.
We're trying. Well, it's been a great conversation. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this evening's conversation on Blacks in hospitality, the need for equitable recovery. We're going to end with some sharing some resources. So we have our last slide here. So if any entrepreneurs out there or business owners, these are some resources that we came across. There's a really interesting one from Wider University Small Business Development Center. They offer consulting free of service, free of charge. They have business webinars. Fianta, they have this really, I don't, Stephanie, you could probably pronounce that better than I did. Fianta, the second one.
I'm like reading and I'm like, what, gusto?
No, it's
Panata, I guess.
They are a financial services to the community, and they're offering affinity groups, which I thought was really interesting. So these are groups of people who get together and basically commit to pouring into each other's businesses for a predetermined period of time, and they've had really great success with that program. And then these are some grants. Monco Strong, this is a $10,000 grant for businesses who are in the restaurant industry. And then we have the Pennsylvania 30-Day Fund. We applied for that fund. We're still waiting to hear back from them. And then Gusto is a really great resource too, right? Mm-hmm. They actually have a directory of all the grants in each state. So you can go to their website, www.gusto.com, find your state, and then there's a drop list of all the grants in the entire state. So check that out as well.
That's awesome.
So if there aren't any more questions, you want to say anything, Ty?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for those of you who stayed on to listen to our segment. We appreciate Dr. Stephanie Brown, sharing her expertise and understanding of the Green Book, as well as Leah Rogers and the work that she's doing. You guys are amazing. And we're glad to be a part of, your community as we kind of think through how to, recapture some of the equitable resources for what we're doing. And then we want to also just put up here how you guys can follow along with us on our handles at Instagram at __ Airbnb host. And then our Facebook page is Urbanity Lush, or you can jump on our website you can do TLHospitalityGroup.com. All right.
Thank you, ladies, for hosting this and putting it all together.
I also want to say thank you to Venture Cafe. Yes. They invited us to do this segment. So we appreciate you allowing us to partner with you for this segment. We hope that there's many more opportunities to do this kind of thing. And if you guys wanted to say anything, that would be awesome.